We live in a world where it's incredibly easy to just consume, buy something, watch something, scroll something, and most of it feels really harmless until you start to look at what it's actually costing you. Consumption isn't just about money, it's about what it's costing your life over time. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways that constant consumption can really start to cost you, not just financially, but physically, mentally, and beyond. Number 1, and this is probably the most obvious, but constant consumption costs you financially. This is the most obvious one because it's really the most tangible one. Because when we're in the hamster wheel of consumption, this really manifests itself most visibly in the stuff that we buy and the impact to our bank accounts. It's materialism. We live for the dopamine release that we get from shopping and even just the act of browsing and thinking about buying something. The glaring issue here is that buying stuff and shopping starts to become more of a habit over time and even a coping mechanism in some cases, rather than something we do out of necessity. We come up with new and inventive ways to justify purchasing things, and it starts to actually become even more of a hobby than anything else. Buying the next new thing starts to become a trend in our lives. This can even happen when buying things on the secondhand market, or justifying buying something because it was on sale or we got it at a discount. Just because you got it at a discount or on sale, or even that you bought it off the secondhand market, doesn't necessarily justify the purchase in the first place. We can spend countless hours researching, looking for stuff, browsing the market for stuff that in the end, we don't actually even need. This leads me to point number 2, which is the time cost of constant consumption. Like I mentioned before, we can spend so much time just browsing the internet, browsing the secondhand market, shopping on Amazon for stuff that we don't even need. And if we don't even need it, then it's really just a waste of time in the first place. It takes away time for more meaningful activities in our lives. And I'm not just talking about online shopping. We can so easily fall into the vacuum and the time sink that is the YouTube algorithm, or spend countless hours scrolling on social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. And this can happen so subtly that we don't even realize that it's going on sometimes. It's like we enter this time vortex and then suddenly an hour, 2 hours later, it just seems to go by in a snap. We find ourselves mindlessly just sitting in front of the screen, watching a video and consuming something just because it's good or engaging content. Heck, if you're doing that right now, just stop. Just turn this video off right now. Hopefully you're here because you want to learn something and grow yourself and make your life better. And remember, YouTube and social media aren't just engineered by people to get you to stay on their platform as long as possible. They want to surface ads and things that you'll want to shop for in the end too. So it's all this really cyclical nature between the two. And instead of spending your time more wisely, growing, learning something new, making a business, spending time with your family, you spend endless time scrolling or watching content or shopping, and you miss out on what life truly has to offer. Speaking of what life truly has to offer, that leads me to point number 3, which is the mental cost of constant consumption. Guys, this one is so huge, and there's been so many recent studies done on this just because of the rise of social media in the past couple decades or so. Now, I'm going to be speaking specifically to consumption as it relates to screens right now, but this certainly carries over into other parts of our lives. Research shows that social media has taken a real toll on mental health, especially if you're using it a lot or just scrolling without thinking. People who spend more time on social media tend to report higher levels of anxiety, stress, depression, and loneliness. A big reason is just comparison. We look at other people's images and highlight reels and videos, and we start to feel like we're falling behind or just not measuring up. This can even lead to extreme FOMO in so many cases. Over time, people have even started to weigh their self-worth by the amount of likes that they get, by the amount of comments they receive. And it used to be more common in extreme cases, but this has become the norm lately, where social media has gotten so addictive and so good at locking you into the algorithm that people just instinctively reach for their phones when they're bored. This also affects day-to-day habits and moods in less obvious ways. Late night scrolling can mess with your sleep, which really makes everything worse. Seeing a lot of negative content or constantly doom scrolling can leave us feeling drained and just overwhelmed in general. We live in an age of constant information, and sometimes the overwhelming deluge of the 24-hour news cycle is just too much for our brains to handle. I know social media isn't all bad, and it certainly has its uses, but the cost of constantly being on it and constantly consuming is clear, and it's just not worth it. Pivoting to number 4 is the physical cost or the space cost of overconsumption. Now this relates to point number 1, but when we're constantly consuming or buying, accumulating things, this is really going to show up in the space that we live in. More purchasing equals more stuff. More stuff equals more things to manage, more clutter. I've actually talked about this extensively in some of my other videos. Sometimes we own too much stuff because we won't get rid of things, but sometimes we own too much stuff just because we outbuy the things that we get rid of. We've set ourselves on a pace that we simply cannot keep up with. This can sneakily and slowly start to build up in our homes. And again, as I've mentioned in my other videos, this can lead to all sorts of problems, ranging from just not being able to find something when you're looking for it because you have too much clutter around, all the way to having elevated levels of cortisol because our homes are simply too overcrowded with things. And while this is certainly more tied to materialism and physical things, this can manifest itself digitally too. Too many apps, too many subscriptions, and just too much going on digitally for us to realistically manage. This can really add up over time, and then we'll find ourselves paying for something we forgot we even had. When it comes to constant consumption, we need to really consider the space that we live in and how much we're willing to let stuff take over our space. Number 5, and this is probably the most powerful one out of all of these, and that's the cost to our identities. Here's the honest truth. When we're constantly consuming, when we're constantly stuck in this cycle of materialism and buying and purchasing or scrolling and getting stuck in the never-ending cycle, that ends up shaping our habits and our priorities. It ends up becoming who we are. And this is something I've been thinking about more recently because consumption doesn't just cost us time or money, it actually shapes who we're becoming. When most of our free time is spent scrolling, watching, consuming, we slowly but surely start to take on the identity as an overconsumer. That really shows up in a lot of practical ways. Instead of creating, we scroll. Instead of fixing something, we replace it. And instead of deeply thinking, we look for the next thing to watch or buy. Why is it so hard to just sit alone with our thoughts? Why has it become so difficult to just be in silence for more than a couple minutes? I got to the point where I noticed that every time I had a little bit of free space or a little bit of free time, I would instinctively reach for my phone and look for something to consume. Even while I was consuming, I was looking for something to consume while I was consuming. The dreaded double or triple screen effect. This happened more than I would even care to admit. While I was eating lunch, I was scrolling or watching. While I was brushing my teeth or getting ready for the morning. While I was going to the bathroom. Yeah, I know, we've all done that. It's like we're no longer okay with just being bored sometimes. I'm old enough to remember, being a kid of the 90s, that boredom led to going outside, building something. And now, for some reason, boredom often just leads to picking up a screen or looking for something to purchase. That shift has changed something fundamentally with us and our society, and not for the better. We become more passive, more dependent on external stimulus or input, and less comfortable overall with just being still. Like I said, I've noticed this with my own life, but also with my kids. There are times that I've just reached for my phone without even thinking, instinctively. Not because I need anything, but because I've trained my mind to consume. And there are many times when our kids, at the first sign of boredom, will instinctively ask for screen time. And why should we be surprised when that's what we've constantly modeled for them? The danger here isn't just wasted time and money. It's that slowly we've lost the ability to focus, to create, and just to be present. And as a father of 4 kids, that really matters because, as we know, our kids don't just hear what we say, they watch what we do. If they see us constantly consuming, they're gonna just assume that's normal. So for me, this has become less about just buying stuff and more about being intentional about what shapes my habits, my attention, and ultimately who I'm becoming. As a father, I've realized it really matters what we allow into our home and ultimately into our minds. And constant consumption doesn't just fill our space, it slowly shapes our lives. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can do isn't add more, but choose less. Thank you guys so much again for watching this video. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this content. Please consider watching one of my other videos right here or here, wherever I end up putting it. I don't know. Much love, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.